Channel 4 News begins right now with a breaking news alert.
Boston on edge, a city virtually shut down. Thousands of heavily armed officers and armored vehicles swarming the streets, hunting for a 19-year-old college student wanted in the Boston Marathon bombings. His older brother and suspected accomplice killed in a furious getaway attempt during the night. Residents warned to stay inside.
And not open the door unless there is a uniformed, identified law enforcement officer on the other side.
And those who know the suspects trying to come to terms with the news.
Everybody is in utter disbelief and shock.
Good evening, everyone. We are covering this extraordinary day from several angles.
First, you're taking a live look at Watertown. That's 8 miles from downtown Boston. This is just one of the neighborhoods where police are searching right now. Also, Channel 4's Kumasi Aaron has reaction from local campuses to the MIT shooting. And Jim Piggott spoke to a Jacksonville beach man, a man who just happened to take a photograph in Boston on Monday, right after the marathon, of the suspect that is now being sought.
Our crime analyst Ken Jefferson is here with us right now to give us insight on this unprecedented manhunt, nothing ever like it before. We begin with Stacey Cohen, who's joining us now live from Watertown with the latest. Stacey?
Watertown is on lockdown. Heavily armed law enforcement officers with full tactical gear are painstakingly searching, going door to door. The city of Boston and surrounding areas brought to a standstill in the midst of a massive manhunt.
Keep the doors locked and not open the door unless there is a uniformed, identified law enforcement officer on the other side of it.
Law enforcement and federal officials combing the area as schools and businesses shut their doors. At the center of the chase, 19-year-old Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, identified as one of the suspects in Monday's bombings at the Boston Marathon. The other suspect, his 26-year-old brother, Tamerlan, was killed after a gunfight with police in the early hours of Friday morning, hours after the FBI released these surveillance photos. Those who knew Dzhokhar, including a former wrestling teammate who did not wish to be identified, said he seemed like a normal teenager.
He was a really nice kid, you know. He was the kind of kid that would push me harder. Like, he knew all kind of, he was a good fighter. He was an all-star wrestler.
But in Maryland, an uncle of the suspects said they brought the family great shame and urged the young man at large to surrender.
I say, Dzhokhar, if you're alive, turn yourself in and ask for forgiveness.
A source familiar with the ongoing investigation tells CNN that a pressure cooker bomb was recovered during their pursuit of the suspects. It has since been detonated. Live in Watertown, I'm Stacey Cohen. Back to you.
Stacey, any other information about this suspect who is at large? Have you been able to find out what he was doing leading up to the attacks on Monday?
Yes, well, what he was doing leading up to the attacks still remains somewhat of a mystery. We do know that he has spent a considerable amount of time here, that both he and his brother have been at times enrolled in schools here. We know that he was somewhat of an active sportsman, an athlete. He has been known to wrestle at times. And most people that we have interviewed or that have spoken about him have not had any reason to indicate that this was something forthcoming. Of course, we've heard very different stories from his family member, his uncle there, denouncing both him and his brother. And in that very press conference, his uncle, who lives in Maryland, had unkind things to say, describing both them as losers. He did not expand on that sentiment, but clearly they are examining all aspects of his life, what led up to this, and certainly hoping to find him sooner rather than later.
Stacey, as we look behind you, you appear to be the only person in Watertown right now. Would you describe for us what else you have seen there, what people are doing, what the police are doing?
Well, people are being asked to shelter in place, to stay in their homes behind locked doors. There have been busloads of law enforcement brought in here, heavily armored military vehicles. These police are in full gear from head to toe with incredible weaponry as they are going door to door. They are homes from attic to basement. They will knock on the doors. If no one responds, they will sound a bullhorn warning the people inside to come out. If nobody comes out, they will enter that home, and they are searching them thoroughly until they declare the all clear. As you can imagine, it is an incredible amount of work, but that is the process. They plan not to let the suspect out if indeed he remains in Watertown, which is the last place that he was seen.
Stacy, thank you very much. Stacy Cohan joining us live from Watertown near Boston. Now here's a map to show you the chain of events that began on Monday when the two bombs went off in the heart of Boston on Boylston Street. Then last night, police were alerted to a robbery at a 7-Eleven store in Cambridge near the campus of MIT. About 10 minutes later, an MIT campus police officer was found shot to death in his vehicle. Moments later, police say the two brothers carjacked a man and actually told the driver, that man, that they were the marathon bombers. Finally, in the early morning hours, a violent police chase into Watertown, where the older brother was killed.
Like we said, just an extraordinary day. Joining us is Ken Jefferson, our crime and safety analyst. And Ken, we've never seen a manhunt like this, and yet his whereabouts are still unknown. Do you have any theories on where he might be? With your experience, what are you thinking?
Actually, I do, and they're just theories right now, but
sure.
If you recall, he was involved in a shootout earlier during the day. Who's to say that he's not injured, and he's injured to the point where he can't move, or who's to say that he hasn't died and they just haven't recovered his body yet? And then he still could be on the run. So those are three theories there that we'll see in the end how it plays out.
I worry he might be holed up with somebody and that someone is actually being held. Is that possible?
That is possible. He could have gotten scared and broken into someone's home at gunpoint, and he's holding them hostage right now. That's another theory.
There's been a report that he might have explosives with him. Would that be the police department's biggest concern?
That's one of their biggest concerns. See, the closer that they get to cornering him, he's going to be like for the sake of a better word, a cornered animal. He's frightened, he's afraid, and that's when he'll become desperate with his actions. He'll set police officers up for an ambush. He may have a detonating device that when they come in, it explodes. He may not have any regard for his life now, so that's a very dangerous situation. That's their biggest concern. And then, as you said, Mary, he may just have did a home invasion,
sure.
Broke in, and he's holding somebody hostage right now.
Yeah, they're describing him as extremely dangerous. Now, we know police either carried out, I believe they have carried out, actually, a controlled explosion at a residence in Cambridge.
Right.
Can you explain what that is? What's behind that?
What that means is that they have found some incendiary devices, something that can explode, whether it be bombs or something else that can explode, and they are rendering them safe. In other words, they're detonating them to make them non-lethal. So that's a process that bomb squads throughout the county, throughout the country, actually do when they find a device.
But not possibly connected with this. This is just through the search?
Well, it could be connected to this because we don't know what their motives were. If you recall, during the high-speed chase, they were throwing out explosives during that particular time, and then shrapnel was found on the body of the deceased suspect. So we don't know what their motives are and how much arsenal of ammunition do they have.
Ken, thank you very much for your time and for your insight. We really appreciate it.
Certainly.
All right, now here's a look at the MIT officer who was killed during the manhunt, 26-year-old Sean Collier, a patrol officer on campus. A transit officer was also injured, 33-year-old Richard Donahue. He's now out of surgery and is in stable condition. Channel 4's Kamasi Aaron joins us now live from the University of North Florida. Kamasi, you spoke to campus police there. Are they trained for situations like this?
Definitely, and they're waiting to find out exactly what happened in the situation with that officer at MIT before they decide to make any changes here at UNF. So there is just a heightened concern here on campus. It's not just here, though. We were down at Flagler College earlier today, and law enforcement officers there, as well as students, are sharing the same concern.
It could be anybody, and that's how scary it is.
Flagler College student Emmy Stevens is talking about the shooting death of a police officer Thursday night on MIT's campus. She says it's just one more reason to think about her safety on campus.
I'm kind of scared of the dark, so I never really used to go out in the dark now, but even more so walking back and forth from work and things like that. It's I've been really careful about doing that, make sure I'm with somebody and things like that.
Luke Zara says the shooting hasn't changed how he feels on the open campus.
Yeah, I feel pretty secure on campus. I mean, we have the blue lights that you can hit to get help immediately, and there's there's a police officer on campus here. And
St. Augustine police work with campus security, and there's an officer on duty every day from 5:30 p.m. to 5:30 a.m., the window of time when the shooting occurred at MIT. Officer Mark Sampson says even though officers are alone, backup is never far away.
They're right downtown, so our other officers that are on patrol are on the same channel, frequencies, that type of thing. So they have communication with the officers that are working the downtown area too.
Here at UNF, police say the shooting has meant a heightened awareness among the department's 29 officers.
You know, we've talked to our officers about that, being aware of what's going on and who's around, and we're always looking for those problems and try to address them as they come up.
At Flagler College, police believe that their security is covered pretty well, but they, along with the officers here at UNF, say they're going to take this incident once they find out more about what happened and then go from there in determining if they need to make any changes or improvements to their current security measures. Reporting live here at UNF, Kumasi Air on Channel 4, the local station.
More and more information continues to come into our newsroom as investigators are now in their 24th hour searching.
Again, here's what we know right now. Police say they have no evidence these two men worked with any other accomplices. The father of the two told reporters he believes his sons have been set up. As the manhunt goes on, residents are asked to stay inside their homes. Businesses, schools, and mass transit, buses, subways, ferries, all shut down. The Red Sox and the Bruins have both postponed their games that were scheduled for tonight.
Coming up tonight at 5:30, law enforcement officials are expected to hold a news conference briefing us with the latest in this investigation. We're also hearing reaction from local runners who were in Boston at the time of the blasts. Then at 6, a closer look at the history and religion in Chechnya, where the two bombing suspects are originally from. When we're not on the air, you can find updates on news4jax.com. We've created this section for you at the top of our homepage. It's called Boston Marathon Explosions. We're also posting news conferences as they happen. And you can find a timeline of all of this week's events.
He's calling it a miracle. A Texas man witnessed but escaped 2 separate tragedies unharmed.
He ran in the Boston Marathon and lives not far from where the Texas plant exploded. His amazing story ahead.
All right, the weather headlines are huge. A very wild weekend in terms of our changes in the weather pattern. I'll have the full forecast in about 4 minutes.
I'm Jim Pickett. Coming up next, we'll show you the role of social media in helping to identify the bombing suspects. A Jacksonville man took a picture that really helped the FBI. Coming up next.